Hello, everyone. Today we will talk about the latest update from OpenAI, function calling, and the 16,000 context version of ChatGPT. I will use two examples to show how to leverage these changes and how to build a super app with function calling. This is a game-changing capability for us if we want to build OpenAI-related application. When I was reviewing GPT-4 technical publication, I was wondering if it can call third-party API. That would be awesome. Now, finally, it's the time. Let's dive into it. If you have any good ideas how to build application use function calling, please share with us on the comment below. Thank you. So what is the function calling? Function calling is a new feature that allows us to call the third-party API in ChatGPT or GPT-4 endpoint. For example, previously, if we ask the latest data, like the weather or the stock price in ChatGPT, the ChatGPT cannot give us the response. But now, if we leverage function calling, we can get the latest data. So this is very powerful. Let me show you guys a demo of how we can run the super app. So now we can ask what is the temperature in Sunnyvale, California. So today, the temperature in Sunnyvale is 67. So what is the stock price? Maybe ask average, make it more difficult. Price of AMD. Okay, now it give us the average price for the last month is 120. So this is the month's data. ChatGPT helped us analyze the data and give us the average price. We can also call one, what is the capital of California? So the capital of California is Sacramento. So this is pretty cool, right? We can ask the temperature. We can also ask the stock price or the average stock price. So this is a very quick demo for how we can build a super app to combine different API together. Then let's dive into the code and show you guys the code for each app. So we have so firstly, we have the weather app. Let's start the weather app. And then you can ask any question for the weather. What is the temperature in, for example, San Jose? Okay, San Jose is 68. How we implement this? So now let's dive into the code. As we can see, the main code here is we just called the OpenAI API. We firstly create this chat completion. So now we input the model here, and here is the messages. The role is the user input, and we also have the context. So here is the query. That's what we input, like the current temperature in San Jose. And the new part for this function is the functions. They added one functions argument here. Inside the functions, function is a list. There is one dictionary. Inside the dictionary, we have the name. The name is the third-party API or the function that will call the third-party API. Like here is the get current weather, and the description. What will be the functionality? And after that, we have the parameters that shows us some variables. For example, we have the properties, we have the location. In the properties, we have the location, we have the unit. So here are the two variables for the get current weather function. And we also required what is the required argument. For example, here is the location. We have to input the location in order to figure out the weather for that location, right? So here is the new function input data. If you are familiar with YAML file, you can see this is very similar to the YAML file, like the name, description, parameters, and the properties. So if you want it, you can also input some YAML file here and consume in the functions. It will also do the same thing. So now let's get into this function, get current weather function. So get current weather function is just a very basic function to call the open weather map API. So here, the basic app, we have the basic URL, and we define the unit and the location. So now we configure the URL, and then we call the REST API, RESTful API, and after that we get the response, we get the data, and we get the temperature, and we save the data into the JSON format. And so here we can call the example here. We can get the JSON response. So pretty much this is the main idea here. So this is the first part. What the first part doing here, we'll call the OpenAI API to help us get the idea that if we need to call the third-party API or not. For example, librate the response from the first API call, like it will give us a JSON file that has a name. New is the get current weather. That means we need to get current, use the get current weather. This function get more information. For example, the argument will be location. For example, location, right? This is required Sunnyvale, California. So the second part is if we have the function call, that means we need to call a second time for this query. Then we will call the third-party API. For example, here we get the function name. The function name here is get current weather. So we will go to check if get current weather, this function is available. If it is available, then we will pass, like here, we pass the function argument. We call the get current weather function. Like here, we have the location, we have the unit as well. We don't need to put the unit here actually. Yeah, so now we have then we can get the response, right? We can get the response. After that, we will call the OpenAI endpoint again. We put the input, the response from the third-party API here into this content, and also align with the function name and the query. Then, and the first time, the response from the first time, right? Then we send to the OpenAI endpoint again to give us the response. So this is how it works. Previously, the ChatGPT API does not have this part. So now we have this functionality. We can get the latest data. So this is a very cool, right? So let's quit this project. And we can see another example. This is Finance app. Let's get it running. The Finance app, we can ask for what is the like stock price, the average stock price for MSFT. So it help us calculate the average price, like April, or yeah, here is a bunch of the average price from MSFT, Microsoft. Let's get into this code to see how we can get it running. So again, we have the model. We first configure the model name, and the message. This is the prompt we're using. And the function here, this is the key point for the function calling, right? Now inside the list, we also have one dictionary that defines the function. For example, the function name is stock monthly performance, and the description is get the stock price and analyze it. It is put or call. So we can also ask if it's we need to short or long the stock. And the parameter here is the parameter, the type is object, and the properties that basically we can treat it like the variables for the function. Like we need to put the stock name, and we also need to input the review period if we want to do 1 month review or a quarter review, right? And also the required is the stock name. So let's get into this function, stock monthly performance function. As we can see, this is the stock function performance. How we can get the stock price. So here we use Yahoo Finance, this package. We can get the data for the stocks. The return. So here is the return type is the pandas data frame. And for the analyze the stock price, can get the open, high, low, or volume to analyze the average data or to see some matrix. So for here, I only use these columns, and we save the data into a JSON. That's pretty much what is doing for the stock monthly performance to get the data. Here we also explicitly say the available function, like it's the stock monthly performance. And then we call the endpoint, the chat completion endpoint. We put the model, the message, the functions, and the function call inside. So now we can get the response. The response here is also something similar like this. It will give us the function call. If we have the function call, that means we will run another loop to call the third-party API. And for example, you will get the function name and this function argument. As I said, the function argument is just a key value pair. So we can use the keyword argument and pass into this function and get the function response. And also here, then we have the function response that is from the third-party API. Now we need to combine the information, the first response and the second response together and send to the OpenAI API again. So this is how we send to the OpenAI API again and get the response. So this is quite interesting, right? It's very intuitive and very, I would like to say it's very handy. Another cool thing is we can combine these two apps into one apps. It's a super apps. For example, here we have for example, here we can combine the two apps into a super app. So here is how we do it. So firstly, we get the function from the weather and another third-party API and from the finance app, right? So these two functions. Now, inside here, we also have the model name, and we have the message, the prompt. And now in the functions here, we combine the two function into the list. That means this API, this function has more capabilities. So as we can see here, available functions, now we have two instead of one. We have the get current weather and get a monthly performance, stock monthly performance function, right? So the amazing thing for ChatGPT function calling is it will automatically help us to figure out if this query need to apply the third party or the functions here. If you use the Langchain, you have to deterministically put the API call or put other third party queries inside the function. But now you don't need to consider that. This is way more intelligent. You just put the function here, it will automatically help you to figure it out. That's why I think if we add more functionality here, for example, we can add the Yelp API to help you analyze the food to give you the recommendation. You can put the Amazon API to help you analyze the Amazon product, then give you recommendation. You can also use the Google Map API and put it here. It will automatically help you. You can even put the API like New York Times to help you analyze the newspapers or the articles. So this is very, very powerful. That's why I think it's a game changing for us to develop some super apps. And the implementation actually is pretty easy now because we only need to put the function here to combine. So this function can be the central place. You can add different functions individually. For example, you can configure this one as different YAML file or save into other format. It is very handy, right? The code changes actually is very, very minimum. You only need to change here, like how you pass the argument. Actually, this one you don't need to change it because we already use the argument passer here. So you only need to change available function and the function in the list. That's it. That's the beauty of this function calling. I think this is very, very powerful. And I will put the code into the GitHub. And actually, I already upload the code into the GitHub. So here is the GitHub, the code. And if you are interested in it, you can take a look. And as I said, you can add more functionality into this repo. For example, Google Maps, Yelp recommendation, Netflix, New York Times. So this is amazing. I think this is one of the biggest update lately from the OpenAI. I'm looking forward to get more ideas, new ideas, or any recommendations from you guys. If you are interested in it, you can also write some code here to make some PR and contribute to this app. Hopefully, this is very informative if you are interested in build some OpenAI related application. This pretty much for today, and thank you very much for watching. And if you feel this video is helpful, you can give me a like or consider subscribe. Thank you very much. See you next time.